I should have known something was wrong when Barbara insisted on attending our quarterly business meeting. In 15 years of running Matthews Tech Solutions, my mother-in-law had never shown interest in the company's operations, unless it involved criticizing my role in its success. "Just be professional," my husband David urged as we walked into the conference room. "Mom's probably here to support the family business." His eternal optimism would have been endearing if it hadn't been so misplaced. I'd spent enough time around Barbara Matthews to recognize the predatory gleam in her eyes. The conference room was packed with our biggest clients and key stakeholders. I had spent months negotiating these contracts, building relationships that would take our company to the next level. Barbara sat at the head of the table, elegant in her designer suit, wearing that infamous emerald necklace, the one she loved to remind me was meant for a proper Matthews wife. "Everyone, please take your seats," I began, opening my presentation folder. "We're excited to discuss the new direction for..." Actually, Barbara's voice cut through the room like a knife. "I have an announcement to make first." David shifted uncomfortably beside me. This wasn't part of the agenda. As the Matthews family matriarch and majority shareholder, Barbara continued, each word carefully chosen, "I feel it's time to address some concerns about the company's leadership." My stomach dropped. Majority shareholder? That wasn't possible. David and I owned the company equally, or so I thought. "My son built this company from nothing," Barbara declared, shooting me a triumphant look. "While others may try to take credit, it's time everyone knew the truth about Matthews Tech Solutions." I watched in horror as she distributed folders to everyone in the room. "Inside, you'll find documentation showing that all patents and intellectual property belong solely to David Matthews. Any contracts signed without his explicit approval are null and void." The room erupted in confused murmurs. Our biggest clients, partnerships I cultivated for years, began flipping through the documents with concerned expressions. "Mom," David started, but his voice lacked conviction. "This isn't." Furthermore, Barbara spoke over him. "As of this morning, I've initiated a review of all recent contracts. Those signed by Sarah Matthews are suspended pending investigation." The room spun. Years of work, millions in contracts, all hanging by a thread because my mother-in-law couldn't accept that her precious son's success might be partly due to his wife. Mrs. Matthews, our largest client, Mr. Henderson, spoke up. "We've been working with Sarah for years. She's been instrumental in..." "And we appreciate your loyalty," Barbara interrupted smoothly. "But as the true patent holder, David will be handling all contracts moving forward." I looked at my husband, silently pleading for him to speak up. He sat frozen, wearing that same conflicted expression he'd had for 15 years whenever his mother overstepped. But this time was different. This wasn't about family dinner seating arrangements or holiday plans. This was my life's work. "Actually, Barbara," I heard myself say, my voice steadier than I felt, "I think there's something everyone needs to see." I opened my laptop, hands shaking slightly as I entered my password. Barbara's smile never wavered, but I caught the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "Sarah," David whispered, "maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," I cut him off. "I've stayed quiet for 15 years. I've watched your mother undermine me, belittle me, and try to erase my contributions. But not today." I connected my laptop to the projector, and the screen filled with a document I'd hoped never to need. The original patent applications for our core technology, dated 3 years before I even met David. "What is this?" Barbara demanded, her composure cracking. "Patent number 789,321. I explained, my voice growing stronger. "Filed by Sarah Chen, MIT graduate student, 2008. The foundation of what would become Matthews Tech Solutions." The room fell silent. I clicked through more documents, my original research papers, prototype designs, early investor meetings, all predating my relationship with David. "That's impossible," Barbara sputtered. "David developed it." "David improved the original design," I acknowledged. "We became partners in every sense, but these patents? They're mine. They always have been." Mr. Henderson leaned forward, studying the documents with newfound interest. "These are legitimate USP2 filings." "I met David at a tech conference where I was presenting this technology," I continued. "We fell in love, merged our talents, and built this company together. I took his name, but I never gave up my intellectual property." Barbara's face had gone from red to white. David, she turned to her son. Tell them this isn't true. For the first time in our marriage, I watched my husband straighten his spine and face his mother directly. It's all true, Mom. Sarah's brilliance is what drew me to her in the first place. I've just been too cowardly to admit how much you've hurt us, with your constant interference. But the shareholding documents, Barbara clutched her folder like a shield, are fake. I finished for her. Just like the emeralds in that necklace you love so much. The gasp that went through the room was almost satisfying. Almost. Now, I said, gathering my strength, shall we continue with the real business meeting? I believe we were about to discuss the expansion plans I've developed for Q4. Mr. Henderson smiled, closing Barbara's folder and pushing it aside. Please proceed, Mrs. Matthews, the real Mrs. Matthews. As I began my presentation, Barbara slumped in her chair, her carefully constructed reality crumbling around her. David reached under the table and squeezed my hand, a small gesture that carried 15 years of apology. But this wasn't the end. As I caught Barbara's calculating gaze, I knew the real battle was just beginning. She might have lost this round, but a woman who would forge documents and sabotage her own family's business wouldn't give up easily. What she didn't know was that I had more revelations tucked away, secrets that would make these patent documents look like child's play. After all, you don't survive 15 years of corporate warfare without keeping a few aces up your sleeve. Let Barbara plot her next move. I had stopped playing defense. The aftermath of the meeting was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Barbara stormed out, her Louboutin heels clicking aggressively down the hallway. David's phone buzzed incessantly with messages from his siblings. Apparently, their mother had already started spinning her version of events. She's telling everyone you forged the patent documents, David sighed, scrolling through the family group chat, and that you've been secretly working to push the Matthews family out of the company. I was organizing files in my office, pulling out more evidence I gathered over the years. Interesting theory, considering what I found in the corporate audit last month. David's head snapped up. What audit? I pulled out a thick manila envelope. The one I ordered after discovering unusual transfers from our R&D budget. Want to guess where $2 million went in the last year alone? His face paled. Mom wouldn't. Matthews Family Holdings, I cut him off. A shell company created 3 months after our wedding. Ring any bells? Before he could respond, his sister Emma burst into my office, her face flushed. Sarah, Mom's calling an emergency board meeting. She's trying to invoke some old family trust clause to force a buyout. I leaned back in my chair, surprisingly calm. Is she now? You don't seem worried, Emma observed, her eyes narrowing. Because she taught me well, I replied, pulling out another folder. Every slight, every manipulation, every attempt to push me out. I documented everything, including her little embezzlement scheme. David sank into a chair. The R&D money, that's why she was so interested in those accounts. $2 million, I confirmed. Funneled through a fake research facility to pay for her new beach house in the Hamptons. The one she told everyone was a family inheritance. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. The house she promised to leave to my kids. Nothing like using stolen company funds to manipulate the grandchildren's affections, I said dryly. Classic Barbara. My phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Henderson. Barbara's contacting all major clients. Making serious allegations. Need to talk. She's trying to burn it all down, David muttered. I stood smoothing my skirt. No, she's doing exactly what I expected. Emma, when's the board meeting? Tomorrow morning. She's flying in the entire old guard, Dad's former partners, Uncle James, everyone who still thinks David is the sole genius behind the company. Perfect. I've been waiting for this gathering of the Matthews clan. David, I turned to my husband. It's time to decide whose side you're really on. Because what happens next will change this family forever. He met my eyes, and for the first time, I saw no trace of the dutiful son who'd let his mother run roughshod over our lives. I should have stood up to her years ago. Whatever you need, I'm with you. Emma shifted uncomfortably. Sarah, what exactly are you planning? I opened my laptop and turned it to show them the screen. Security camera footage played silently, showing Barbara in my office late at night, clearly searching through files. Last week, I explained, when she thought everyone had gone home. Watch what she takes from my desk. The footage showed Barbara stuffing documents into her designer bag, a triumphant smile on her face. The original contract drafts, David realized. The ones with her forged signatures, along with evidence of 3 other shell companies she's been using to siphon funds, I added. She thought she was finding proof against me, but really. You planted it? Emma whispered. You knew she'd try something like this. I closed the laptop. 15 years of psychological warfare teaches you to think ahead. Tomorrow your mother will walk into that board meeting thinking she has everything she needs to destroy me. Instead, she'll implicate herself. David finished. In front of everyone, she's trying to turn against you. My phone buzzed again, this time with an email from our company's legal team. Right on schedule, I murmured, scanning the message. They finished reviewing the documents Barbara found in my office. Would anyone care to guess what they discovered? Emma sank into a chair beside her brother. I can't believe she'd risk everything like this. The company, the family name. Pride, I said simply. She was so convinced of her son's superiority that she couldn't accept the truth. Every achievement had to be David's. Every success had to come from the Matthews bloodline. And now she's going to lose everything, David concluded grimly. I gathered my files, preparing for the next day's showdown. Not everything. She'll still have her family, if she can finally learn to accept that the Matthews name isn't what makes this company great. It's the people who built it, regardless of their last name. As Emma and David left my office, I stayed behind, staring at the family photo on my wall. It was taken at our wedding, before Barbara realized I wouldn't be the compliant daughter-in-law she'd hoped for. Everyone was smiling, genuine joy captured in a single moment. Tomorrow would change everything. The question was, could the Matthews family survive the truth about their matriarch? And more importantly, was I ready for the consequences of finally bringing Barbara Matthews to her knees? My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. A photo appeared, my original patent documents spread across what I recognized as Barbara's antique desk. The text read, "Did you really think you were the only one preparing for war?" I smiled, screenshotted the message, and added it to my evidence file. Even now, Barbara couldn't resist showing her hand. The real question wasn't whether I was ready for tomorrow. It was whether Barbara Matthews was ready to learn that she wasn't the only one who knew how to play the long game. Let the board meeting begin. The Matthews Industries boardroom was a testament to old money, dark mahogany walls, leather chairs, and portraits of past company leaders. All men, all Matthews, all watching as Barbara made her grand entrance at 9 a.m. sharp. She brought reinforcements, her lawyer, 2 senior board members who'd known David since childhood, and Uncle James clutching a folder labeled Family Trust Documents. The cavalry had arrived. Before we begin, Barbara announced, her voice dripping with false concern. I want to acknowledge how difficult this must be for everyone. Finding out that someone you trusted has been deceiving the family. I sat quietly, watching her performance. David's hand found mine under the table. I have evidence, she continued, distributing folders, that Sarah has been systematically undermining Matthews Industries, forged patents, embezzled funds, and attempts to dilute family control. Uncle James cleared his throat. According to the original family trust, any proven misconduct allows for the immediate removal of non-blood relatives from leadership positions. Right on cue, I almost admired the choreography. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Barbara's lawyer asked, clearly expecting denials or tears. I stood slowly, smoothing my dress. Actually, I thought we could watch a movie first. Confusion rippled through the room as I connected my laptop to the projector. Barbara's smile faltered slightly. Security footage can be so enlightening, I commented, pressing play. Especially when it captures late-night office visits, document theft, and I paused for effect, phone calls about transferring company funds to personal accounts. The color drained from Barbara's face as her own voice filled the room. Yes, transfer another $500,000. No one checks those R&D accounts anyway. David signs whatever I put in front of him. Turn that off, she demanded. Oh, but we're just getting to the interesting part, I continued. The part where you discuss using company money to buy shares through shell companies. Very creative accounting. Uncle James was already flipping through the documents she distributed, his legal training kicking in. Barbara, these signatures. They're not even good forgeries. The best part, I added, opening my own folder, is that while you were so busy trying to frame me for financial crimes, you didn't notice your own paper trail leading right back to Matthew's family holdings. Your private account, your transfers, your fraud. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Barbara's lawyer was already packing his briefcase, making a hasty exit. The senior board members were huddled over documents, whispering frantically. "You set me up," Barbara hissed. "No," David spoke up, his voice firm. "You did this to yourself. Every scheme, every lie, every attempt to push Sarah out, it was all you, Mom." "I did it for you," she cried, "to protect your legacy." "My legacy?" David stood. "My legacy was building something with the woman I love, but you couldn't stand that she was smarter, more capable, more successful than your precious son." Barbara turned to Uncle James, desperation in her eyes. "The family trust is very clear about financial misconduct." He cut her off, looking years older. "The board has no choice but to launch a full investigation and press charges," I added quietly, "unless." The room fell silent, all eyes on me. "Unless what?" Barbara whispered. I walked over to her, speaking softly so only she could hear. "Resign from the board. Relinquish all claims to company leadership. And most importantly, publicly acknowledge that Matthews Industries succeeds because of merit, not bloodlines." "You're destroying this family," she accused. "No," I corrected her. "I'm saving it from your outdated ideas about worth and heritage. Your grandchildren deserve to grow up knowing they can succeed on their own merits, not just their last name." Tears filled her eyes. Real ones this time, not the calculated drops she usually deployed. "Everything I did, I really thought I was protecting our legacy." "The legacy isn't in the name, Barbara. It's in the innovation, the hard work, the collaboration, everything you fought so hard against." She looked around the room, at her son standing tall without her shadow, at board members reviewing evidence of her crimes, at the portraits of past leaders whose era was ending. "I'll resign," she whispered. "Just don't let this destroy everything." As the lawyers drew up paperwork and board members made calls, I watched Barbara Matthews sign away her power. It wasn't the victory I'd imagined all these years. Instead, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness for a woman who'd been trapped by her own narrow vision of success. David wrapped his arm around me as we left the boardroom. "Think she'll ever change?" I thought about the family photo on my wall, about the grandchildren who deserve better, about second chances and grace. "Maybe," I said. "But first she has to understand that real family bonds aren't built on power and control. They're built on love, respect, and acceptance." As we walked out, I noticed Barbara lingering by the portraits, staring at the faces of past Matthews leaders. Tomorrow, these walls would feature new photos of innovators and leaders chosen for their brilliance, not their bloodline. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your opponent. It's about creating space for something better to grow from the ashes of what was lost. And maybe, just maybe, Barbara Matthews would finally learn that the greatest legacy isn't the one you protect, it's the one you let evolve.